and that was being. And then we said, look here, this being then must exist, has some power and activity, right, didn't we? And we said, good heavens, when one returns, this returning to it, which is true in all relationships, then one experiences a unity or oneness. And that's when the knower and the known and the knowing are the same, one. Well, now we can say, wait a minute, how is being then related to oneness? And then we can go the last step and say, hey, how does this curious thing called oneness relate to the one? What are you doing though? Whatever you do, remember, the first thing you want to do is work out the relationships. And this is the model for all the relationships. So if we have a hierarchy, the one, or the highest good, oneness, right, being, intelligence, vitality, or power, right, soul, all right, and soul and body, we can talk about the relationship between these two. We can talk about the relationship between these. These doesn't make any difference. The same vocabulary that you'll be using will be the same. The same vocabulary will be used between all of those possible grades of being. And what guides all of these is that for each one of these there's a return to the source, a return to the source, return to the source, return to the source. So, our most fundamental way of being, which is intuitively, when you're in a better place, right, that intuitive sense of a better way to be, is nothing other than mind. You participate then to a higher degree and bring about further perfection. That allows then the soul to return through each one of these levels to an ultimate, and that is called the grades of reality. Thank you. I don't even think I have anything else on the next sheet. Nope, the last sheet.
I wanted to ask you.
I can't hear you.
I wanted to ask you, in the way you were talking, it sounded like being took on a certain characteristic that when you turned or returned upon itself, that it was like that was when being occurred. But that's not what I was, well, in my own mind, I thought being was a certain existence. Like this exists, that exists. But I got the idea that as you were talking, being didn't occur until you participated. Did I miss something?
I don't know whether you missed it. The view you have is a view you have. Whether you can reconcile it with this is an interesting task. But here, you see the word maybe that'll help you here. Intelligence, another word for intelligence, is mind.
But we don't participate. If we don't return to find our source, are we then being? Are we then in the state of being if we don't do that? guess my other question is more.
Well, pardon me, before you do that. These are dashed because they're not three. See, if the fundamental level of reality was only being but had no intelligence, then it would be dumb. And if it didn't have any vitality, it'd be dead. Right? If intelligence, right, didn't have any being, it would be illusory, right? And without vitality, it would be very dull. Right? Vitality, without intelligence, without some kind of intelligence guiding it, it would just be chaos. But it still would have to have some kind of being in order to be at all. Therefore, these are hyphenated. They're hyphenated because they're inseparable. You can distinguish them through reasoning, but in themselves, they're inseparable. And see, this would be on this level. The mind of God, with all the vitality of that mind, right, and existing, if you like theological language, you know. And of course, one of the interesting things would be wherever you participate, or however you participate in this, to the degree that you can, then that changes this too, doesn't it? Your everyday human relationships. Not necessarily, because what did we say before? The higher you go, each one of these contain within itself preeminently those qualities which it shares with others. And you could then put this whole thing, if it were possible, to say to have this the way one most wants to be, is the result of having participated in this, then in whatever relationships you have with whoever or whatever it is you're involved in, that would be quite demanding in one sense, yet simple in another, because you're bringing in higher levels of reality. And makes things a lot easier, of course. That's why words are important, right? To share words is love. Same thing, love of sharing words, so that you can then be the way you most want to be. Oh.
My question's probably even more simpler than
Hope so.
not, maybe just more elementary. Does the soul have its own existence apart from mind at any time, or does it necessarily have that kind of relationship, maybe even to a very elementary